And we are live. Man, this is it. You're here.
I'm
So,
here. I'm here. I'm here. It's nice.
everybody who does not know who Glenn McCall is, Glenn is a expert in mergers and acquisition and strategic buyout. I've known Glenn for a very long time. I don't know where I'm gonna put this laptop. I'll figure it out. But I've known Glenn for a very long time, probably what, 14, 15 years now?
Yeah, before my daughter was born, so she's 11. So
Damn.
yeah, probably about 13, 14 years.
That's crazy. It has been
Yeah.
a while. Just so to kinda get people introduced to you, there are high points and low points of careers. Um, there's been a couple times when you've really hit a very high point, and one of them, the big one, was the Chrysler deal. I want you to go into detail on that, but I want you to talk about yourself a little bit, and then kind of build up to it because I think that's such an interesting story. And you have a very deep background, especially in the world of business and mergers and acquisition, strategic buyouts, all that stuff. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I've a career of pretty much everything, management, sales, marketing, and I just love business. So, growing up in Germany, my parents being in the Air Force, moving around, I think that kind of fed into the personality that I have now, right?
mhm,
I like to jump from project to project to project to project, and I did a lot of that, in my younger years. But ever since I fell into the M&A world and consulting, advisory, all of that, I've really been honed in on that. I've worked at very large companies, Fortune 150 companies, some great large publicly traded companies. I've worked at small mom and pop businesses as well, and where it's like a family environment. And I've worked at companies that were very stagnant, and I've worked at companies that were very aggressively growing. Sitting back and observing all of these businesses and what makes some of them successful, why others aren't as successful, why some are on such a fast growth trajectory, why others are stagnant, I started to see similarities among those that were the ones that stuck out, that were the best companies, fastest growing companies, most profitable companies. And I don't know, it just fascinated me, you
mhm,
know? So I started to study that. And then that's where I learned about the M&A world. And that's where I also discovered that M&A is not just something for the big multi-billion dollar companies. If you're a business owner and you're watching this and you have a smaller business, say in the 1 million to 10 million revenue range, um, it works for you too. But the thing is, most owners in that range aren't really thinking about that. And there are some preconceived notions that they have that kind of hold them back and prevent them from pursuing that. So that's kind of what I've made a mission of mine to be.
what kind of notions are you coming across the most?
Well, it's just something that's reserved for the biggest companies. I don't have deep enough pockets, um, and it really comes down to their mindset. We've talked about this before, but it's very important in business to think creatively,
Mhm,
and so there are ways to structure deals in a creative manner that wouldn't require the money that you think you need to have. Um, Anytime that you need something or lack something, there's always someone else that has it, but it's just a matter of the mindset, being able to think creatively.
can you give me an example?
Yeah, for example, you might look at a deal and say, well, I can't pursue acquiring that business because I need all of this money at the closing because they're asking, let's say, $5 million. Well, the truth is, there are many ways to structure a deal. One could be using some combination of seller financing, some combination of assuming debt, which, if I'm going to give you the money so that you can pay it off a loan, I could save myself from having to come up with that money by assuming the loan.
Mhm,
Things like that. So outside investment, assuming And there's a lot of different ways to structure deals, but those are just a couple of small examples.
What's one thing that a lot of people aren't familiar with is seller financing. Whenever I talk to people about their business or maybe they're looking at other businesses to purchase, one of my first questions is, are they doing seller financing? Because that's where you can get really, really creative.
Right.
Do you mind going into detail on seller financing?
Sure. That's a wonderful tool. It's just like in real estate. If you're selling your house for X amount, everybody wants that amount, whether it's worth it or not. If so same thing with businesses. I want $3 million for the business. However, it may not be worth $3 million, but there's ways that you could structure a deal to give that owner 3 million, maybe over time, right? Something down and then over time make payments. But not suggesting that you overpay, but there are ways to structure the deal. So with regards to seller financing, you can actually have the owner carry a note and get payments over time, essentially annuitize that exit for that owner. And many times that has some tax advantages taking that money over time that way instead of a big lump sum. And a lot of times owners don't know that when they're exiting, right? They just want that U-Haul to just dump that money in that $3 million in their yard, right?
Right.
But it doesn't work like that. So seller finance allows somebody to get annuitized payments over time,
Yep,
and it's tax. There's tax advantages to doing it that way.
for sure. That's man, with seller financing, I just think the second and you hear an owner operator say they're interested in seller financing, they're open to structured and creative deals. Whenever I used to look for businesses to purchase, whenever I was on a purchasing, not rampage, but I was on the I was on the prowl to look for businesses to purchase.
I remember
One
that.
thing I would identify is people who are interested in seller financing. Whether we ended up doing seller financing or not doesn't matter. It was just that they're open
Open
to
to it. Yes.
everything but a lump sum payment, pretty
Yeah.
much.
And that's where the negotiation comes in.
Yeah.
Sometimes the seller hasn't thought about that or doesn't really understand how that works. And you can also do seller financing over various amounts of time. So it could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be 7 years.
Mhm.
And then there's the component of how much is seller financed.
Right.
Typically you want to do at least 30% seller finance if possible.
Right.
Um, but you could do 10% seller finance, 20%. There's no rules, and that's what I love about it. Same as real estate for any of you that are familiar with negotiating deals in real estate. Same thing with business acquisitions. There are no rules, and that's what I like, the creativity of it.
Yeah. Where's probably one of the more creative what's more one of the more creative deals that you've been a part of?
One of the most creative deals I've been a part of was a large publicly traded company. I can't say the name of the company, however, it was well over, let's just say well over 80 billion in revenue. Very
Mhm.
large publicly traded. Anybody listening to this would know that company. And we had a deal structure on that whereby my buyout group would not need to bring our own equity into the situation because we had a prearranged situation with an insurance company to take care of all of the liability transfers. So we would be um, selling all of the pension liabilities to an insurance company. It was on the line, ready to do that, contingent on our closing. That's called a risk transfer, and that would have cleared billions of dollars off of the balance sheet to bring in our new debt for our equity. Also, we had another company lined up to buy 80% of a finance division of this company,
Mhm.
and that would have been what's called a carve out. So we already had prearranged for with both of those entities, a major bank, a major insurance company, to acquire those pieces of the target company, and that would have provided the equity that we would have needed to step into the deal.
That's a lot of moving pieces. How do you even come up with something like that? Or how does like a deal something like that get structured? It's very unique. There's no same case.
Right, right. I was lucky enough to have found a mentor,
Mhm.
somebody that I reached out to when I wanted to learn more about this business of M&A. a very successful consultant, someone who's been buying businesses for over 40 years. Um, and so that gentleman kind of took me under his wing a bit, kind of showed me the ropes. I worked with him for free for several years, and that's how I kind of learned deal structures. Being part of that buyout group that we've been discussing, I was invited into that group by this gentleman, and that's where I really got to learn how these big deals are done.
Mhm. Is it Man, there's just so many different types of partnerships that you can create
Right.
from different buyouts. There's even I mean, one of the more common buyouts that is happening nowadays are complementary
Mm.
complem com
Buying a complimentary
yeah,
business.
yeah,
Yeah,
complementary business, either to add service or product to their existing business.
that's right. That's right. You know, you may have a business that provides XYZ service. Well, what are the other businesses that your customer base frequents?
Mhm,
And so you can look at acquiring those type of businesses. You know, depending on what your business is, it might be a supplier, it might be a manufacturer, it might be maybe not a direct competitor, but someone that's in the same space that serves the same clientele. And a lot of owners, from what I've seen in talking with owners, advising, is that they don't think about this. You know, they don't even see it as a possibility. But that's why I think there's so much opportunity because they haven't thought about it. And when I talk with them and I ask them about how to grow their business, it's always along the same lines, you know, that organic growth, hiring more salespeople, doing more ads, things
mhm.
like that. So,
What's One of the quickest ways is to buy up your competition to gain instant market share. I don't know if you saw
exactly.
kind of a side note. Have you heard about Ticketmaster monopolizing or
No, I haven't heard about that one.
so they're getting striked and they're getting told they might have to split the company because they monopolized ticket sales and started doing some shady stuff,
Okay.
increasing sales across all events.
Okay. Yes. 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 Yeah. That is, as you mentioned, the fastest way to grow.
Yep,
You know,
by acquisition.
by acquisition, absolutely. You know, back in the day when I was working with the gentleman that I alluded to, my mentor, he would run ads in the Wall Street Journal. In the Wall Street Journal, ads, we would say something that's along the lines of our book that we have, which is grow your revenues by 100% every year, guaranteed. And of course, owners would call in or they'd reach out and say, how is that possible? You know, it's taken me 20, 30 years to get to this point. What do you mean grow by 100%? And the kicker is it would say guaranteed. So, you know, it was almost like they couldn't believe it. But when you step back and think about what the biggest companies do, they don't grow $1 at a time, one sale at a time, one customer at a time, one day at a time, right? They acquire another competitor. So if you're a business owner and you're seeing this, and say you have a business in the 1 to $10 million revenue range, you may have never thought about acquiring another business. However, if you were to think about who else in your space is about the same size as you, about the same amount of revenue that you have, and you were to acquire that business, and you can use a creative deal structure. We have over 200 of them. You could essentially double your business overnight, and then you don't stop there. You keep doing that, and then we come back around to what you were talking about, also acquiring complementary businesses.
Yep. I think I think buying up your competition is easily the quickest way to gain market share.
Yeah, two fastest ways to grow a business. One is acquisitions, and then 2 is jumping on trends
Mhm.
and riding that wave.
Buying companies, it's not as easy as it sounds. Just because you have capital doesn't mean a company is worth purchasing. Um, there's some companies that are state of the art modern and they're not making any money. There's some companies that are not state of the art. They're they got paper everywhere, but they're making money. There's everything far and few in between. What are a couple different things that really make you interested in purchasing a company?
I think that acquiring a business makes more sense. One reason why I'm interested in that is because you can grow so fast in such a short amount of time. One company that I worked with, Lithia and Driveway, they're doing the business model of selling cars online. I worked there as an employee. And there are a couple of other companies that have gone that down that path, Carvana, and others. But they grew so fast by acquiring dealerships throughout the country. So rather than go and build dealerships, create dealerships, and grow them from scratch, they went and bought companies. So that I think that's fascinating. When you look at, let's say, somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur and they're going to start from scratch, I kind of liken that to you want to create a business, I want to have a business. So let's say I'll just liken it to a computer or a car. You would go source all the components, put everything together, and build that thing. Whereas I would just go buy a ready-made car, buy a ready-made computer. And you see, so when you acquire, you're not having to go through the blood, sweat, and tears of growing something, all the ups and downs.
Yep.
When you acquire, you already have distribution, you already have a name, you already have credit, you already have customer base. So, you already have revenues, you already have profits. So I think that's what fascinates me, and that's why I really like it. It's like a cheat code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely can be. Man. So, whenever you're looking at competitors to purchase, let's say you already purchased or you already have a company and you're wanting to buy and then build again. It's actually one of my favorite books, Buy Then
Buy then
Build.
build,
Yeah.
yes.
But you want to buy up your competitor and start building them. What's something that you kind of look for in your competitor? If they can even merge, obviously, but systems, everything in place, there's licenses. I mean, everything from the top down,
Absolutely. Most acquisitions aren't successful, most acquisition attempts, so you have to look at the culture. That's one big thing if you're going to try to integrate two companies. Um, there's a really good book I'm reading right now by Brad Jacobs. It's called How to Make a Few Billion Dollars, and it's all about M&A and how he's built and scaled through acquisitions. And he outlines some wonderful things to look for. The culture, you want to look at, essentially how they do business. What are their competitive advantages? What do they have that you lack? What do you have that they lack? You also want to look at being able to get them at a good price, a good multiple. That's very important. He talks in that book about overpaying for businesses and how it kind of derailed their plan.
mhm,
Um, and you also want to look at how that acquisition is going to fare out after the purchase. Are you likely able to retain your key personnel in that company that you acquired? What is that going to look like? What will the morale be? But those are just some of the things you want to have in mind when you're looking at targets.
that morale thing is a really big piece. Um, yeah, being able to continue and make sure that everything is going to keep moving forward with business continuity
Right.
post purchase.
That's
I
right.
think that's just super, super important
That's right. Yeah, there are a lot of checklists where you can go through and kind of really evaluate whether an acquisition is in the best interest or not.
for sure. Um, kind of in regards to the industries that you're looking at or that you think are super like prime for the taking. I know that you think a lot about the baby boomer generation, retiring and everything.
Right.
What what advantages do you think are there?
Okay. So for the people that aren't aware of what Ryan's talking about, over the next 10 years, it's been touted that there are 10,000 baby boomers retiring each and every day. So that presents a wonderful opportunity to be able to pick up businesses where there's nobody to hand that business off to. Typically, these owners' kids don't want the business or they're doing their own thing. And so it presents an opportunity for us to um, take part of this greatest wealth transfer um, that we've seen in a long time. So, looking at these companies, typically in the 1 million revenue to $10 million revenue range, we actually have an opportunity to look at all types of businesses. Um, everything from architectural firms to manufacturing businesses to plumbing businesses, landscaping businesses, um, water filtrations. These are just some of the businesses I've looked at recently.
Mhm.
But essentially, you want to be able to position yourself to go after these companies because it's more expensive for an owner to just turn off the lights and to close the door, lock the door, and walk away.
Right.
So if there's somebody that they can turn that business over to that can respect their legacy, take their baby to the next level, care for the people that they have working for them that they've known for so many years, manage those supplier relationships that they have, the guys they play golf with, things like that. You're in a prime position to really explode your own business because there will be so many businesses. Now, businesses that are listed with brokers for sale, most times they never get sold. So what we like to do is look for businesses that are what they call off market, meaning they aren't listed for sale. And that's where you get the best deals, the best prices, and you can negotiate those creative deal structures like the seller financing.
And the best way to really find those off-market deals is to know people?
To know people? Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's why I'm here. I wanna know who you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but to know people, that's one way. If I'm a business owner and I'm looking at growing fast, I wanted to look at all the channels. So that could be knowing people and networking. It could be talking to people like accountants. Typically, they get wind when someone's thinking about selling because they'll want to put together a valuation. You can also talk to attorneys in the M&A space. Suppliers is a good way. Hey, Mr. Supplier, which clients do you have that aren't paying you on time? You know, that's one way to find out companies that may be thinking about selling. There's direct marketing as well. So you can do, LinkedIn messaging, you can do letters. There's a variety of ways to get that deal flow happening.
Is email marketing, is that big at all in the yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great way. But we don't go straight head on when we're looking for a target or looking for a company to sell to acquire that may be interested in selling. What we'll do is we'll ask if they are interested in selling any subsidiaries or divisions.
Yeah.
And that way it's not so threatening head on. Yeah.
Yeah, getting all your ducks in a row whenever you're dealing with all that stuff is, it's definitely a don't get me wrong, I don't think you have many issues, it's more on the business side, but what besides, like, from an organizational standpoint, where do you think a lot of small businesses lack in order to sell?
Ah, okay.
So what I see on my end,
Hmm.
is a lot of people just aren't ready to sell and the company's not ready to sell, mainly because the owners are still working. The owners have not worked themselves out of that position yet. The company still depends on those owners, operators.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we see that a lot in the 1 million